I got one. I just when I start the recording, that's when the sarcasm starts.
Well, for me, yeah, there's a whole bunch of it.
Welcome to Music Musing. Every once in a while, my brother George and I would have these conversations about music. Music is our passion, and it's a huge part of our lives, and we decided to share those conversations with you. So if you love music, sit back and enjoy this podcast.
Welcome back to Music Musing. Got my brother on the line.
How we doing?
Good. We were doing that thing where we talk before the podcast and talk about funny things that happened, and
That's
never
bad,
gets on.
right? We're not
Yeah,
supposed to
never
do
gets
that, right?
on video or audio. I mean, yeah, I put the connection together that Creedence Clearwater Revival in Proud Mary. Well, I don't think they did it originally, but Big Wheel Keeps on Turning was Max. Actually, my son actually picked this out and said, "Hey, that's not Leonard Skinner." I'm like, oh, that's the same line.
Yeah.
Wild.
Hit me again, Ike, and this time
Yeah.
put some stank on it. What movie was that?
Who? Liar Liar?
There you go.
Yes, Liar Liar.
Yes.
Oh, speaking of stank.
Not Hooba stank, but
so we're gonna I feel like we're gonna get hate mail dropped off by people of clout, or you and I are gonna throw punches. One of the two. I mean, something's gonna happen here tonight. No. I want to think we're in the same line, but I have a feeling we might not be. We'll say it and then kind of see where we are.
Yeah.
But I'm going to set the stage. So a group of guys I play cards with, I'm kind of talking music with them. One of the guys actually has a podcast as well, named Rob Cuny. And somebody had said something about Nickleback, and I, just off the cuff, because somebody, you know what it was? I think it was Mike Simmons that actually said something about Foo Fighters. And I said, well, if you like Foo Fighters, you like Nickleback. And he's like, shut your mouth. That's blasphemy. I'm like, no, they're the same band. No, they're not. They're not even close. What? Okay, if you don't like Nickelback, that's fine. But if you're going to argue that Nickelback is not the same band as Foo Fighters, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about this because you're wrong.
Well, that's what we're here for, I guess. Then, because...
right? I mean, so am I in the wrong camp, or are you in the right camp, or what's your take on it?
My take on it is, and again, I was talking with my friend Sean earlier about this because he called me on his way home from work just out of the blue. And I was like, oh, good. You're the only one that listens to this podcast. So I'll run this by you, jokingly, of course.
Yeah.
But he said, I said, if you listen to Foo Fighters, or if you like Foo Fighters, you like Nickelback. And he's like, that's not true. They're different bands. And I said, well, I agree. He goes, Nickelback, people have very strong feelings about Nickelback. You either love them or hate them. And he kind of put it in, he's like, and Foo Fighters are forgettable. They're like, if their songs are on the radio, you're like, that's background noise. But if you notice it, you probably change the channel. He's like, Dave Grohl's like the nicest guy in rock and roll, supposedly, he's one of those guys, but his music is forgettable. I mean, he's like, they probably have like one song off every like 10 or 12 albums that are like, probably know the words to, but he's like, you don't care to listen to it. He's like, Nickelback, you either will not listen to them or you really like them.
Yes. Okay.
But he said their musical stylings are similar, but he said Nickelback's probably hated for a lot different reasons and liked for a lot different reasons more than.
Okay. I'll give you that. And I'll even give him that last statement's probably a good sum up of what a lot of people out there think. And we're rock guys. We listen to rock. That's what our podcast is. And
Sure.
You and I have grown up in rock and metal and listened to that stuff. And we've even talked recently that there really aren't a lot of hard rock bands nowadays that are really big. Like I would say that though that era of those bands and, like Nickelback and Three Doors Down and Stained and Foo Fighters even stuff. Those are, Foo Fighters is probably the only one that's really hung on probably the longest. Maybe Stained, but I mean, but I think you summed it up. You said it with, people like and hate them for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I think I'm here to break it down to the bands themselves, like what they've produced and what impact they've had on the genre in general. So,
okay.
If you take the vocals out of most of their songs, they are extremely close.
I would say Nickelback's heavier.
Right. I'd say, and it's interesting though, because I actually listened to like a couple websites, it's top 10, top 10 songs from each band. And I'm like, they didn't really put any of the heavy ones from Nickelback, just one of them. But yeah, I think they both have ballads. They both have lighthearted songs.
Yeah.
The Mentos commercial song. What was the Mentos commercial song?
Big Me.
Yeah. Big Me. And obviously got photographed by,
yeah.
Look, we can,
no.
We're not, I love the song. You hate the song. Most people hate the song.
I'm tired of hearing the song.
Well, that's 99% of the stuff on the radio now.
Well, yes, that's true. We've been over that ad nauseum too.
Yep.
I don't think that they're
good.
I mean, they're similar in the fact that they're rock bands, heavier rock bands. I don't think that there's, I mean, you could draw a pretty straight line to a lot of bands in the early 2000s that made radio rock. I mean, like you just said, Stained, Creed, even,
but I don't,
Three Doors Down. There's a lot of that.
I don't feel like those guys had the same sound as these two bands.
I personally don't hear melodically the same, the similarities.
Okay. So so I'm gonna go down a list.
Change my mind.
I'm gonna go down a list and change your mind. These are the things that hit me, and some of them were conscious. Some of them were I've listened to both these bands for a long time. I'm not a Foo Fighters fan, but I'm more like the fan, like what you said. If they come on, they're background noise. I don't reach over and turn it off. And I'm the same way with Nickelback, but I'm actually more that way with Foo Fighters. If I'm going to turn one of them off, I'm actually going to turn off Foo Fighters. I know that's not a popular opinion, but
it's my opinion.
So both of these bands formed and started 1 year apart.
Okay.
For the majority of their songs are 4/4 and are rock. And when they're not, they're ballads and they're still 4/4. They're still a solid 4 on the floor drum beat and hard rock ballads mixed in.
Right.
They both have 9 albums, and all of those 9 albums were released within 1 year of each other, either plus or minus. So in some places, the Foo Fighters released one in 2005 or 2007, and Nickelback released one in 2008. So they're almost identical with each other on release dates of their albums and when they started bands. Not only that, their last album was both released in 2017.
This is your argument for they sound alike?
No. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm stating some facts.
Okay.
So
all right, I'm still listening.
So the fact that they both kind of came, and now you know as well as I do that when a band comes in and tries to sell their music and get their music played on the radio or sell their albums or tour in concerts, you have to be playing what's popular.
Sure.
And for those two bands to come out the same year, and obviously they're writing their music that they care about. There was I read a lot of, nice little tidbits about a couple of the Foo Fighters songs and a couple of the Nickelback songs, but they were writing from a lot of the same things. They were writing from, broken hearts and broken marriages and broken breakups. And then they were talking about, some of them were talking about sex and idolizing it and making it an addiction.
Sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Yeah. And it's funny because, I didn't get that blatant line of sex, drugs, and rock and roll when I looked up Foo Fighters, but I looked at like half their songs and that's kind of what it's about.
Yeah, pretty much.
So they were obviously playing kind of the same music anyways, because they started around the same time. And again, to get popular, you have to be making good music. Both of those bands, Nickelback has had 7 songs in the top Billboard 100, and Foo Fighters have had 10 songs in the top Billboard's top 100. They are, it's kind of like stats. If you look at stats for somebody on a football team, and you look at another person that plays the same position and look at stats, they're right down the line. They're the same band. And again, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but if you look at those kind of things, you start seeing that, well, they're around the same time. Yes, Nickelback or not Nickelback, like Stained and Three Doors Down and stuff were also kind of around the same time, but they're exactly the same time. Like they started a year apart. Their albums were all released within a year of each other.
Yeah.
So, okay, I haven't convinced you yet, have I?
Well, I'm still waiting for this. I mean, if we're having this conversation, like if you like Metallica, you like Megadeth because they sound exactly alike. I could probably get behind that. I'm still not seeing the stylings part of it, I guess, or maybe I'm going for the wrong focus.
I asked the group what they didn't like about Nickelback. And the first response I got from that group that I was talking to was their picture. They don't like their picture. I'm like, well, but
wait, wow. Okay.
But the reality is some people just don't like the sight of Nickelback.
Right.
I mean,
it's probably because they're Canadian.
It could be.
No. Sorry. To our Canadian listeners. Sorry if there are any.
But then I also got one that said the vocal range is different. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back and listen. Their vocal range is not different.
No,
they're singing
Dave
almost
Grohl
in the same
and
register.
Chad Kroeger. Yeah, they're probably interchangeable vocal wise,
right?
As far as range, I'll give you that.
And then the next one said that they think that Grohl is more melodic. And I went back and listened to I went back and listened to some of the songs, and I'm like, they're about equal. Because when Kroeger sings a ballad type song or a slowed down song, he has a pretty good voice. Same way with Grohl.
Oh yeah, but I mean, man.
But both of them are gravelly when they sing.
Sure,
hard,
absolutely.
And when they're growling or gravelly singing, it does sound like talking. But it's not just Kroeger that does that. I went back and listened, and
I agree. I agree
Grohl as well.
I agree with that. Grohl can really get after it too. And you know me, I'm more of a lyrics and vocalist type of guy and performer. I really pay attention to that stuff, and I don't like Dave Grohl's voice.
I don't either. But I love the music.
Now, see, I'm less enthusiastic. I mean, I'm not as, I don't really care for Chad Kroeger's voice either, but I like the music a lot better. So it kind of lends itself to, I can take his voice most of the time because I like the music better with Nickelback.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
no, that does.
Because when whatever, literal less than a couple hours ago or 3 or 4 hours ago, when I asked you what the topic was, I was like at work like 3 or 4 hours ago. Anyway, like I wondered aloud, like I wonder if there are comparable songs. Like,
okay,
there aren't, to me, I just scanned a couple lists, I went through, half a dozen albums of each and like kind of picked songs that I know and that I like. Like the ballads are ballads. I mean, that's apples and apples.
Yeah.
Their heavier stuff is apples and oranges.
Really?
Foo Fighters don't have, dude, tell me a Foo Fighters song that's as heavy as Sight of a Bullet.
Oh, no. I agree with you. I think I think that if you were going to put the scale of heavy and ballad and put, in the middle, the line in the middle, Foo Fighters would be slightly to the left, and Nickelback would be slightly to the right. I think but for me, like I said, I know you're not hearing any difference, but for me, every time I hear one of their songs, I'm like, honestly, I could hear Nickelback playing that Foo Fighters song. I could hear Foo Fighters playing that Nickelback song.
Well, again, you can do that with a lot of bands.
True, but this one bothers me because everybody goes,
they either love them or hate them.
Nickelback sucks. Oh, yeah. Foo Fighters are the greatest band ever. No, you can't do that because
I don't like your picture.
Right. Well, that's what I seriously. I mean, to break it down to that, that's what I want to know is what is it you don't like about them? Because if there's something you don't like about them, the three things that were given to me by this group is it's not true. I mean, it's literally not true. You can't say they sing in a different range. They sing in the same range. You can't say one's more melodic than the other. I can give you examples of both of them singing very good. I mean, very in key, in tune, and singing a great song, a slow song where it's just them and maybe an acoustic guitar.
Well, for me, like one of the biggest standouts was the age difference between Kroger and Avril Lavigne when they were together. Aside from that problem. That is a serious joke. I don't know how we need a sarcasm font, but no, seriously.
I got one. Just when I start the recording, that's when the sarcasm starts.
Well, for me, yeah, there's a whole bunch of it. But anyway, there's like this. And our listeners know I prefer the heavier side of music. I really enjoy the heavier side of music, and I think it's the tongue in cheek. I don't really care what, I'm going to write songs about, like Rockstar is. Oh,
love that song. Love it.
Yeah, but it's trash. It's a garbage. It's a throwaway song. It's a B-side.
It's actually about trash.
But I mean, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Well, so's the Mentos commercial, The Best of You.
But I mean, it's horrible that actually gets radio play. I think Nickelback has a pretty decent catalog of really good songs.
Yeah.
That gets wasted on, I think, radio, and I think they've personified this, screw you attitude like that turns people off. Like that, songs like Rockstar, and everybody's got a drug dealer on speed dial. I mean, that does turn some people off.
Yeah, true.
And Grohl's personality, I think, is the opposite of that. It draws people into lackluster music where, his personality draws people into forgettable music, and Nickelback's persona or personality turns people off to really good music. Is that
no, but that's what I'm saying though, that's what bothers me most about people that say, I don't like Nickelback, but I love Foo Fighters. How could you not like Foo Fighters? Well, I don't say I don't, I'm just not a huge fan of them, but I like Nickelback. But if you can honestly say that you don't, you hate Nickelback, then you got to come up with some really good reasons, because it's close enough. I think that's what you kind of called me out. I'll take it. That, you might not have seen as many similarities as I have, but that I think it's more the fact that people really are adamantly against them and love the Foo Fighters. And I'm like, you just can't do that. They're close enough.
Well, again, I think it's really sad that I think it's the band members' personalities.
Yeah.
That affect, like you said, it's a picture.
Yeah.
Whatever. I think it's really is people like, they say you eat with your eyes, if a plate's sloppy or, your food looks like crap, you're not as, it might taste delicious, but you're not really into it.
Okay. How did Cinderella ever sell an album? I mean, seriously.
Tom Kiefer is ugly.
Kiefer?
Oh my good God.
Seriously. I love Tesla, but how did Tesla ever sell it?
Don't go down that road.
Well, no,
if we're going on looks alone, boy.
It needs to be brought up though in this instance, because if that's, he might've been joking and he kind of made a joke after it and said something funny about it, but it is got to be part of it, because if you're, and this, we're going to stand up on our pedestal and be snobs at this point.
Yeah.
If you can honestly tell me that you really, really, really hate Nickelback completely, but Foo Fighters is the greatest band in your catalog, then there is something wrong. If you can't appreciate the fact that they're making almost the same music,
I agree
that
with
it's
that.
really close to the same music,
Sure,
you're doing it for a different reason. It's got to be looks. It's got to be something else.
I agree.
And don't get me started on how many of the Foo Fighters, even later songs, but mostly in the earlier songs, sound a lot like Nirvana songs. And obviously there's going to be a tie-in. You know, he was there for a long time, but there are a lot of their songs that,
Not really. It was only about a 4 or 5 year run total with Nirvana.
Oh yeah, but still, I mean, he had that influence. Like some of the earlier stuff, I'll Stick Around is a really strong Nirvana riff.
Sure.
Stacked Actors is another one that's very, very, it's when I hear that, I honestly, Cobain could be singing and I wouldn't have been surprised.
That's true. I mean, I don't know. We talked about this. Do you think Nirvana would have lasted? Past,
I think Nirvana was already morphing. I think Incesticides was almost borderline experimental. It was like a band that's doing their, like Sgt. Pepper. I think it was an experimental album that they were already starting to push themselves into a different area. Honestly, I really think that they might have actually started curving towards that Foo Fighters sound. I mean,
really? As anti-establishment as Cobain supposedly was, you think they would have went that route?
Well, that's the problem is he wanted out because of that. Like that he knew he was drifting towards that. He knew that he was going to be on, in interviews, and he was going to be at the top of the pinnacle. That might have been what, might have been.
Might have been why Courtney killed him.
Dang it, man. You do that. Like, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying. So I think that Nirvana's songs would have started to turn light. And I think honestly, Grohl might have actually even started singing some of them. Like
that's
it might have
possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, because I think he had a want to get kind of something of his own anyways. Not that I think he would have left. I think if Nirvana would have kept going, I think they would have really rode, for quite a while before they let it go. But I really hear a lot of Nirvana in a lot of their songs.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Okay, so here, there's both of these bands, when I reviewed a couple of them, they listed these songs as anthem. So have you ever heard Burn It to the Ground by Nickelback?
Several hundred times, yes.
Okay. Have you ever heard All My Life by Foo Fighters?
Yes, several thousand times.
They're anthems. They're and honestly, if you put those on,
not. We didn't go over them on our
I know, whatever. I knew I was going to come up too. If you put one on left ear and one on right ear and listen to them, it's hard to tell that they're different bands. If I can listen to everyone out there, please listen to me. Put them on next to each other. Set your stupid attitudes aside. I don't know.
I did that last podcast. What did I say? Bands were, Bush and Nirvana.
Yes.
I agree. There's obviously in the early 80s, you had like the big four. You had Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax. Those bands were more than less interchangeable.
Yep.
You're going to have an extent to that, but I don't think there was the necessary polarizing hatred and transcending, or whatever the love, like in between, like Megadeth fans didn't hate Metallica, and likewise, it's weird. There's always going to be bands that sound alike, but I think, I don't know if I'm making your point or not, but I think you're right that there's no justification to hate bands that sound that close.
Right. That's exactly it. That's the point. Is I think it doesn't make sense
anyway. Well, It doesn't make sense anyway. At best.
Right. It doesn't make sense for us who care and listen to music closely and have a podcast about music, it makes a difference to us. And when somebody says that to me, that, oh, you don't like the Foo Fighters, well, I can't be friends with you. We're not friends anymore. I'm like, wait a minute. I also like Nickleback. Oh, don't talk to me anymore. If you don't like Foo Fighters and you love Nickleback, then there's something wrong with you. Like I said, it's not that I don't like Foo Fighters. It's kind of like what you said. It's just kind of forgettable. It's the songs come on, they're really cool. Okay, but I'm done. I'm not going to go search out their library. I'm not going to go find a Foo Fighters song to put on. But I'm the same way with Nickelback. If the song comes on the radio, I'll listen to it. I like it.
Well,
I know you don't like it, but I like Photograph.
But there's the thing. Like, I'm maybe even probably, well, not maybe or probably, I'm way more over radio than you are.
Yeah, true.
So, like, my thing is, if I hear something, I may search out, like, let's see. A good example for like Foo Fighters is Tired of You.
Yes.
There's nothing but him and the guitar. And I love that song. Yeah. And I don't really care for Foo Fighters. There are a number of bands that I can take or leave that they have like one song or a couple songs that like, wow, it's like, it's kind of out of the realm of ordinary. And I mean, it gets zero radio play.
If Today Was Your Last Day by Nickleback.
See,
but the same idea. It's just them and acoustic guitar. Well, I mean, there's a really awesome solo at the end of it, but
yeah, but to me, there's songs that that you can,
or Saving Me.
Yeah. And I'm not talking, I'm talking the opposite. Like, there's a couple of songs that I would search out and listen to and then forget about them for another couple of years.
Well,
by both.
Yeah, both. I agree. I mean, My Hero is my favorite Foo Fighters song. And I will search that song out occasionally just to listen to it because I like the song, like the words, like the music, like the singing.
Yeah.
So
to me, they're both probably, I think, and I think Sean said they're both forgettable, really. Yeah. Or at least most people want to. And I think it's because they're burnt out. I mean, let's face it. We, as a music listening genre, are flooded with Foo Fighters and Nickelback.
Yeah.
We're inundated with, I mean, they have a new album out and there's 3 or 4 songs that get radio play.
Yeah.
And whether they're good or not, I mean, and now, I mean, we've come to the short attention span part of the program. And it's like people forget almost instantaneously, what you did.
Yeah.
When I first thing I said was, Sean said, did you know Foo Fighters have a new album out? And they've shelved it. They haven't released it. It was supposed to it was due out in May and it's suspended until COVID's over or whatever. But I mean, I'm like, nah, I didn't hear anything about it. I mean, we're in that mode. I mean, granted, there are much bigger things going on in the world right now, but I mean, music is release, just like sports was up until a few, now it's just, everything is, I guess that's the last frontier of, and there have been, political ish bands, U2 was big for that in the 90s and stuff like that.
Green Day,
right there. There are a few, but for the most part, music has always been anti everything, generalized.
Right.
Like, it's a big
middle finger at the man.
Exactly. More than less, especially rock and roll.
Yep.
So, I mean, at least it's a release or it's a safe haven, for snobs like us, to use your words, that we don't have to, okay, well, they don't play sports. Well, fine. You can't go and, rewatch an old game, that you already know the ending to. I mean, you can, and people do, but it's like, nah, I saw it or whatever. You already know what the score is. There's no, but music always turns that. It always turns that crank of something different. It always touches people in a different way. It always puts that like you said, you can hate Nickelback and that's fine, even if you don't even have a good enough reason. And you can love Foo Fighters and that's fine, even if you don't have a good enough reason. But the facts remain that music is a constant because it's never the same. And it sounds stupid, but it's different for every person that hears it.
Yep.
It's for me personally, it's always there. No matter what, I know certain song. If I'm in a certain mood, I got it. If I'm, if I need it to be picked up, I got it. If I need to be, if I just need quiet time, I got that too. I say quiet time with music on, but I mean, I know what I need, and I know most, and when people send me new music or people tell me new music, or when I, if I have Pandora on and it just happens to shuffle up on something I haven't heard before, it really it almost makes my day. Cause then I'll research that band's whole catalog and music is a great communicator in the fact that I think it's brought more people together than torn them apart. I will say that about music and not much else. I mean, sports, politics, religion, everything tears people apart. Music usually brings people together in mass quantities.
Just ask Aerosmith and Run DMC, man.
Right. Or anybody that went to Woodstock or Livestock.
Oh, jeez. No. So Foo Fighters 95, Nickelback 96.
Yeah.
Debut albums.
Leader of Men was a great first release. That song, or a great first single. I still really like that song by Nickelback.
Yeah, I do as well. But we come all the way to the end. And again, this is a list, a bunch of compiled lists that I just looked through because I've actually been, you don't understand, I've actually been thinking about this title for probably 6 months. But all the lists I found actually had a very, very similar number one song in most of them. And this is, I know we're usually shorter than we normally are, but I'm going to throw the final shot at you with parting shot with the two songs that are at the top. And I just want you to blind give me your opinions on them.
Wait, I mean, what is, am I supposed to guess the list that they're on? Or?
No. I'm just going to give you the top song, the number one song from both bands that kind of appeared on most lists.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to give you a blind, chance to think about the songs themselves, and then just give me a blind, hey, what do you think about these two songs next to each other as their best songs? So it's How You Remind Me by Nickelback and Everlong by Foo Fighters.
How You Remind Me is not even close to Nickelback's best song. It's probably the most played song.
Right. But if you think about how those songs open, how they crescendo up.
Oh, by comparing it to Foo Fighters? Everlong?
Yeah.
They're the same song.
Yeah. No,
I know. I made your point for you. No, for a reason, because they got so much play. I mean, it's true, a formula. But I made half of your point for you, because if you, like you said, if you like one and not the other, or vice versa, and you listen to those songs together, there's no argument you could make why you hate one and like the other one.
Right.
Because they're pretty much the same song.
Bottom line right there is it bothered me a lot to hear that, to hear you don't like Foo Fighters. Oh my gosh. Oh, I can't believe you like Nickelback. They're the worst band ever. And that really dug deep and just made me think, man, it's not possible. Yeah. It's not possible.
No, so. I mean,
it is possible. Everybody does it.
For some. Yeah. I mean, I've got bands I like more than other bands too, but I mean, there's a lot of bands that sound a lot alike, and I can't stand one. And,
but you have to admit that I'm not stating something that's,
oh no, it's not
a niche thing. No. It is not here or there. I would say that if you asked 90% of the people walking down the street that you could tell listen to rock music what they felt about those two bands, they're going to say the exact same thing.
Oh yeah.
Foo Fighters are great. Nickelback's horrible.
Yeah.
They're going to say that.
I think the tide may have turned a little. I think there's a little, maybe slightly less hate for Nickelback. And I mean, I understand, again, I kind of the way they come off, I mean, interviews and stuff like that. I mean, and like you said, kind of a thumb in their nose and even their fans, it seems like it sometimes. And their music is cheesy. I mean, there's no real substance to it, but neither's, a lot of bands.
Yeah, true.
But
Green Day,
well,
we were just talking about. They got a lot of not very
even
deep
Foo
songs.
Fighters. I mean, they've got a couple songs that are meaty. They got some substance. The lyrics are pretty poignant. And they hit people in the right spots, i.e., Photograph or My Hero by Foo Fighters. There's a lot of that intertwined. But if people go through their catalogs, I bet they'd find a lot of songs that they really liked from both.
Right, and I think that's the case. Is I didn't, when Foo Fighters, I first became aware of them. They've been around for a long time before I actually kind of first became aware of them and started listening. But, it was that automatic disdain for them. Like, I don't really, this is not. And then I finally sat down and listened to them and kind of went through some of their song hits and stuff. And I'm like, that's some pretty good stuff. And honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, I think the material, the writing material, the stories and the lyrics are a little smarter on the Foo Fighter side.
Oh, absolutely.
They're a little less lowbrow than Nickelback. But again, I don't think it's that far apart. I think it's that needle, 1 point one way, 1 point the other.
Okay. But now I guess this is kind of a parting shot for you.
Okay.
People dislike Nickelback for their repetitive, it's all about sex or drugs or rock and roll. What about AC/DC? What about, you could draw a straight line to 30 albums worth of ZZ Top. You can draw a straight line to, lowbrow rock and roll, or just hardcore rock and roll. I mean, okay, name a more rock band than AC/DC or ZZ Top. Blues rock. I mean, and Nickelback is kind of that modern day version, that tongue in cheek, and AC/DC with especially Bon Scott was not so much tongue in cheek. There wasn't much, but I mean, okay, you've got songs,
Crapsody Blue is
well, right.
blues.
But I mean, and ZZ Top had like Tube Steak Boogie. Yeah. Come on.
Look, I'm not, but I'll tell you what separates those two for me though, is the same thing. I meant to say this earlier. The same thing that separates me from Metallica and Megadeth. Their singing styles are different.
Yeah.
When you talk about either Bon Scott or Brian Johnson, and I'm going to blank on his name, Gibbons. So, from ZZ Top, they're different. They're hard rock. They write about cheesy stuff. It's tongue in cheek. I get it, but they're completely different. They're not. They're like 10 opposite direction. They're like 20 apart from each other on that scale as far as sound of their singer. Right. Music might be a little bit closer, but there's still definitely a distinct difference between, ZZ Top and AC/DC. But you're right. They've got other similarities. I just think with Nickelback and Foo Fighters, there's just too many similarities.
Different set of similarities, I guess.
Yeah, to have more similarities than I liked Metallica and Megadeth even. I loved Dave Mustaine's voice. I loved how different it was, even though it sounded kind of like the same type of music that Metallica was playing.
Right.
But they're different. I mean, way different. When you listen to Hetfield as singing as compared to Dave Mustaine, they were a different camp.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
but homework real quick. Listen to "Just Got Paid" by ZZ Top.
Oh, I know that song.
Kind of a more recent release from them. It kind of sticks out for me.
It's very groovy, very I don't want to say waltzy, but it's very groovy. Yeah, it might not even be in 4/4.
That's good stuff, though.
I mean, yeah, it is. No, but it comes back to what you said earlier in this podcast: is music is what we take it. We take it as
everybody's
something
different.
that it gives me a feeling that's different. 1 out of 10 people like Photograph. I love that song because it takes me back to a time when that was me. That's what I was.
That's what it's
I was 19,
to do, man.
Yeah, I was 18, 19.
Who wrote it or who?
Yeah, whatever. I was 18, 19 playing with a bunch of guys in their house till 2:00 in the morning, playing guitar and drums and, hanging out and going and doing weird stuff and playing hide and go seek in the dark, wearing all black. I did that stuff. And that's why it connects with me. What's the Skid Row song? is 18 Life starts out with the Woke Up to the Sound of Pouring Rain.
Oh no, it's I
Remember You. Yeah, stuff like that is just, it's cheesy, it's bad, but it hits me. And again, it goes right back to what you said. It's what we take from this music, and that makes the difference at that point. So
absolutely,
don't.
Everybody's different, and our opinion's the only one that matters.
Yeah, at this point, yes. I mean, because we're recording this podcast.
That's right.
So
so send hate mail to
exactly
MusicMusingFeedback@gmail.com.
Perfect, right there. But do that though. Before you guys listen to this podcast, write us an email. Seriously, sit down and put some of those songs next to each other. Take songs that from each band that are in that top 10 or top 20 of their hits, and just listen to them next to each other. And I'm literally saying, try and confuse yourself. Put one in one ear and one in the other. Get 2 sets of headphones, 2 things to play it, and put them in separate ears and listen. Just see what you think. Maybe tell me I'm wrong afterwards. I'm fine. Tell me why. But if you can't tell me why you hate Nickelback over loving Foo Fighters with some clout and some reasoning, I'm out. I mean, I don't even want to hear your argument at that point, to be honest with you.
Right.
Because my opinion's the only one that matters. Well, yours and mine, but
right, we've already established that. We spent 40 minutes establishing that our opinion's the only one that matters.
Yes, correct. So, well, it's good to be back talking about music again, brother. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And a couple weeks we'll do it again. And like he said, send us mail, MusicMusingFeedback@gmail.com, and we're on every social media at this point.
Pretty much.
Something like that. TikTok. We haven't hit TikTok yet, but
no, it's Chinese. We don't do that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're not supposed to do that.
I don't I heard that on the TV, so it has to be true. It's on the internet.
Or the internet. Yeah, the internet told you that, right?
Yeah. There was an Abraham Lincoln quote that said TikTok is Chinese, so I don't know.
I won't close on that one. Thanks, brother. I'll catch you later.
All right. See ya.
We want to talk to you about music, so reach out to us at MusicMusingFeedback@gmail.com.
You can also find us on most social media sites by searching Music Musing or George or Craig Seibert, SYBERT.
And you can also find us on Twitter as MusicMusing_ as well.
Thank you for listening to this Music Musing podcast.